What is up, YouTube people? Eric here with Team Badman, and we have got news. The latest version of the CRD 4.3, just dropped for the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game. Now, for those who don't know, the CRD is the current rulings document, and it basically explains, how card mechanics work, how certain rulings and interactions between cards are actually meant to operate directly from Panini. And this one is really, really big because it addressed some of the biggest pressing issues out of the Perfection set. In particular, the toxicity of the Cell Level 3 and Level 4 interaction, and Overwhelming Power and Namekian Restored Mastery, which is a very, very notorious combination. So basically, the CRD kind of kept everything else clean. There are four major points that it touched on, which were Cell Level 4, Namekian Flinch, Overwhelming Power, and Black Smoothness Drill. And we're going to go ahead and hit all four of those. So the first one, and arguably the biggest one, is Cells Level 4. Now, the original idea with Cells Level 4 was that you can lower yourself 1 MP level to lower your opponent 1 MP level. However, the issue with this is that on level 3, you could banish 5 cards from your opponent's discard pile after using his physical attack to advance back up to level 4. And you could just keep doing this, infinitely and force your opponent to stay down level 1. Well, the change was made, and Cells Level 4 power can only be used one time per game, which is an absolutely huge deal for both direct anger decks, particularly red and rage decks and black anger-based decks, but also decks that use leveling cards like orange devouring drill and blue dominance, because this means that, it means that they're not essentially stuck on level 1 anymore. This is absolutely huge for MPs that may not have a great level 1 on their MP stack, such as Garlic Jr., Frieza, or Vegeta, but also frees up very, very dedicated anger decks, such as also Garlic, Roshi, and a bunch of other options. It's very, very exciting, and it brings a lot of balance out to the game without completely nerfing Cell's power and making him essentially useless, which that seems to be a really big misconception going through the retro community right now, is that since he can't level hop, Cell is garbage. Well, that's certainly not the case, because why wouldn't you want to be on his level 4? That's an automatic extra styled card in your hand every turn, which is immediate hand advantage, and that's absolutely fantastic. If you're playing Saiyan style, oh look, you can always pull out Saiyan Grab, throw that unless you're playing against a Godku or a Golden Frieza, you're guaranteed to hit with it, and that's going to be an extra card in your hand, so there's absolutely no complaints there. Plus, it's easier to try and come up with an idea to stay on level 3, even if that's not using the banish 5 from your opponent's discard pile effect. There are other ways to do it. I've seen Saiyan Extreme Training as an idea to go around, to where instead of leveling with his level 3 power, you lower your anger to 0 and use a critical damage effect, which is a very, very viable idea. It's something that you could work with, and it certainly doesn't make Cell any less powerful than he already is. He already levels extremely fast between his name card, and if he's still playing Namekian Leaping Kick, or the plethora of other anger options, he's still certainly good. But this helped leverage the whole rest of the game against him, which was a big concern in the first place, because the game shouldn't have had to have been leveraged around a single MP. But, it happened, and everything is just better as a result. The second one is Namekian Flinch, which is one that wasn't really discussed, but a lot of players knew that it was too powerful for its own good. So whenever you blocked with Namekian Flinch, if your MP was level 3 or higher, you could pull a Dragon Ball from your life deck and play it. Not place into play, but instead play it, so you get the full effects, as well as if you're playing in Namekian Knowledge, you force your opponent to mill the top card of their life deck. Well, Namekian Flinch was finally adjusted for placing into play instead of actually playing the card, which is how the card should have been in the first place. With the other effect of Namekian Flinch, to where you can shuffle one of your Dragon Balls and play into its owner's life deck, you could just recycle the same Dragon Ball and continually use its effects. If you're playing against an anger deck, you use Dragon Ball 2, bada bing, bada boom. If you want to mill cards off the opponent's life deck, you pull out Dragon Ball 7, and you stack your deck and you mill theirs. So it had some just outrageously powerful interactions. Was even worse with Cell being around, considering how quickly he could get to level 3 and level 4. So seeing Namekian Flinch get changed to a place in the play instead really brings the card to where it should have been in the first place. It's not to say that the card is, going to be bad or anything anymore, because it's still perfectly viable. It's just going to change up how players have to use it. Instead of using it to, just brute force Dragon Balls out, instead you can use it as a more tactical tool to place Dragon Balls that you don't want captured back into your life deck, and instead replace them with options that your opponent isn't going to want to capture. They're going to be moot, such as Dragon Ball 4 if you've got, no board state on your side. Or you can always pull out Dragon Ball 1 or Dragon Ball 6, which aren't going to have any, capturing effects that are necessarily going to be detrimental to you, other than losing the ball immediately. So it's a really nice touch, and it helped bring some leverage to Namekian that, a lot of the blocks don't really have, because they're just really kind of over-teched. But this is one less that's going to be on that list, and really the only other one that's remaining is Namekian Hybrid Defense, which will hopefully be addressed at some point in the future, but we're going to have to see. The third one is Overwhelming Power, which its main issue that it addressed is its utilization with the Namekian Restored Mastery in a famous set called the OP Loop, in which you could put an Overwhelming Power on the bottom of your life deck, use the Restored Mastery's end of turn effect to place it back into your hand, use the critical damage effect from it, and then just place it on top of your life deck and continually repeat it. Not only was this detrimental to anger decks because of the constant critical damage effect, but it essentially made Dragon Ball staying on players' side completely useless, because Namekian players could once again play passively like they used to, and instead just capture all of the Dragon Balls. I apologize about the train back out there, guys. I just live really close to some train tracks, and that's just kind of bad timing on their part. But Overwhelming Power was instead changed to where the searching effect searches for a non-mastery based effect, in which, in this case, the only card that it currently affects is the Namekian Restored Mastery. So, there's not going to be this passive kind of toxic approach to just sitting back and using critical damage effects to steal a bunch of Dragon Balls in a style that already manipulates Dragon Balls as it is. And instead, there's a lot more, necessity to directly target the card if you're going to search it out and get the critical damage effect. Certainly there are other ways you can do it. You can do it with Cell's level 2 and level 4 effects, you can do it with Blue Terror, you can do it with Android 18's Toss. So there are a lot of ways to still get the card out and use the critical damage effect. But, it gets rid of the toxicity level for the card, especially with the interaction for Cell level 3. So it's most likely after this, between, all these changes, that a lot of restored Cell decks they're just going to fall off. And it's not to say the Restored Cell isn't still going to be good. I mean, it's still going to be a very viable deck, and it's going to hit really hard and do a lot of really good work. But it's just not going to be anywhere near as valuable anymore. So I'm not sure if it's going to be Cell Stack, the Restored Mastery, or Overwhelming Power, but one of those is almost guaranteed to fall off at some point. And as we make our way into OP season here in a couple of weeks, I think we'll find out which one it is. And the last one that got addressed, which was a little bit of a surprise, is Black Spoonless Drill, which was errata to contain for the entire OP season a 1 per deck restriction. Now this is the first card that we've had that was changed from its original printing into a new restricted version, and I think it's a completely viable opportunity to do it, because arguably Black Spoonless Drill is one of the best, if not the best, card in the entire game. In a style that's already stacked like Black, with banishing tools and board control tools and anger tools, having an extra card in hand was just outrageously powerful. And especially with MPs now like Cell, Tien, Yamcha, and Android 16 able to pull out extra cards and get them into their hand, it'd be ridiculous. You can have, 8 card hands easily, with no qualms and no issues about anything. So it's a good balancing point for Black Spoonless Drill, and it's not going to make it any less played. Very similar to how Black Erasing Drill is only 1 per deck, and yet that still sees quite a bit of play as a board control option. Not only that, but limiting Spoonless Drill to 1 per deck opens up a couple of slots in a lot of very common Black decks to fit in cards they may not necessarily have had the room for. There could be options for third confrontation or stare down if it wasn't being run. You can run another ally like Yajirobe for hero decks or Captain Ginyu for villain decks. You could include cards that were missing like extra black scout maneuvers or black swirl or black command. There are still a lot of options that you can have without that space. And considering that a lot of the popular black decks right now want to stay on level 1 anyway, it's not going to be that big of an issue to just pull out Black Spoon this drill and kind of play it and forget about it. It's one less card that you're going to have to worry about being dead in hand. It's one less card that you're going to have to pitch to the mastery in an emergency. It's a really nice balancing point for the card, and it's also just a real testament to how good the card is as a whole. So it's a really nice balance, as is everything else in the CRD. It may have only addressed a few particular points, but they brought a wide variety of balance to the game, and I'm very pleased with the work Panini did. You guys are absolutely fantastic. I feel like Retro kind of got their point across that we don't like this, we don't like that, we want this to get fixed, etc. And they're really major discussion points. They were major issues, major imbalancing points, and seeing them rectified in a still playable way is it's an absolutely fantastic touch. Well done, Panini. I applaud you. So we're gonna see really soon here just the kind of effects that these have on the play style during the organized play season. But I think the field is more varied now than ever. You're going to see a lot of those anger decks come back. You're going to see Ginyu become a popular thing again, especially with the anger that he can generate. Frieza anger decks can be really popular. Vegeta anger decks could come back. And once we get Vengeance, you could see Cooler and Broly anger decks be a really, really big thing. Blue Dominance is going to end up coming back in really, really big style, which means a huge comeback for the once popular Blue Piccolo. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how the landscape shifts out of all of this. And it's a really, really good time to be a DBZ player. So if you're watching this and you're not, I completely encourage you to look it up. You definitely won't regret it. So that's going to do it for our quick look at the CRD. We got everything across. Really kind of went through all the rulings and whatnot, and we'll find out in just a couple of weeks here how big of a deal it's going to be for the landscape. So thank you guys so much for watching. You guys know the deal. If you liked it, click like. If not, click the dislike button and let us know why. If you haven't clicked the subscribe button, be sure to do so, and also all of our social media links are down below, so be sure to check those out as well. Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, you guys know the deal. So I'm going to go ahead and get the heck out of here. I got a bunch of videos to edit, to get up for you guys, as well as this one. So, I'm Eric with Team Badman signing out. And like always, stay bad. We will see you guys on the road to OP Season 2016. Catch you later.